You're muted. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ghostwoods Live Halloween. Tonight we're going to tell scary stories, and I'm going to be talking to several writers of horror fiction. And, you know, we're just going to have a good time. We have a few people with us tonight. Greg Stolze, Iain Lowson, Dane Anderson. Tim Dodopoulos is here behind the scenes with me. And I believe because of time considerations, I'm going to skip something that I'd planned to do. And we're going to go right to Greg Stolze, who joins us from, are you in Chicago?
Right outside of Chicago.
Right outside of Chicago.
Adjacent.
So, Greg is one of the authors that we've published. We published a novel of his called Switch Flipped, and he also wrote a story for an anthology, Cthulhu Lives. And he writes a lot of Lovecraft stuff. I saw that that's not the only sort of cosmic horror thing you've written.
No, I actually just got a piece placed in the first Saliano Press offering, which is in the Court of the Yellow King, and that just came out. So I've got a little piece in there about attempting to treat neurosis through homeopathy, tiny exposures to the play The King in Yellow.
I worry about how this might work out.
What could go wrong?
Okay, well, I understand you're expecting trick-or-treaters and in-laws.
Yes. So what I can hang out until the in-laws get here. Do you guys? Should we have our little chat about horror and what scares people, or should I just jump straight into this story?
Well, I was going to ask you specifically for something scary in a sort of supernatural sense that might have happened to you in the past.
Huh. I really can't think of any terrifying supernatural things that have happened to me. Most of the things in my life that I would attribute to possible paranormal experiences have been pretty benign, actually. I'm more scared of people than I am of ghosts.
Well, what kind of supernatural experiences have you had that weren't scary?
I don't know, sourceless sensations of wonder and awe. That that this kind of feeling that everything was all right, even though there was no necessary reason to believe everything was all right. So.
Huh. And did it turn out that everything was all right?
So far it has, I guess.
You're still alive.
Yes. So, yeah, that's probably a little more appropriate for Easter than Halloween, though.
So,
yeah.
do you believe in ghosts?
I would say that I have not had any experience that leads me to believe or to disbelieve. I mean, certainly they could be out there, and I just haven't run across one. It's the white crow argument. If you believe all, you can say all crows are black, and that's generally a good rule to live by until you see a white one. Similarly, I've never encountered a ghost, but I know that there are intelligent people who are, good observers who've had really weird stuff happen to them.
So you're open to it.
I'm open to it.
Well, we'll see if you're still around when I tell some scary things that have happened to me. But if you're
Okay,
not, you'll get to watch it on the recording later.
there we go.
All right.
Oh,
So, uh-oh. Are
I'm
you
I'm
being...
hearing my wife on the phone in the background, so it sounds like people are on their way.
So
So,
you better get to reading.
all right. You gonna put me on the camera, or is it just gonna be my voice?
You're on the camera.
Oh, okay. Oh God, people can see me. My hair. All right. Well, the name of the story I'm going to be reading is The Well, and it has only been published in a self-published collection of stories I did print on demand called Scary Face. Um, and I've picked it out because it's scary and also short, so I can get through it in a pretty quick fashion. I mentioned it's sort of a horror fairy tale, so I hope you enjoy it and are horrified. The girl went to the well as she did every day. Like most days, she was the last one there because she was the youngest and had short legs. She hauled up the water, put it in buckets, put the buckets on the pole, and the pole on her shoulders. She lifted it with a grunt, and was stepping back along the forest path, alone, when something ugly stepped out of the trees. "I soiled your well," said the thing. It was the size of an older boy, and its clothes were filthy, though of fine material and handsome cut. It moved bonelessly, as a slug does, and it had frog skin. Its mouth was shaped like a bird's beak, but fleshy and lined with small, blackened teeth. There were only slits for nostrils, and it had the eyes of a rat or a very cruel man. It was shoeless, and its slimy feet and hands were webbed. The girl stopped. Water sloshed gently in her buckets. "No one will believe you when you tell them about me," the thing added. "They'll drink the water anyway, and it will make them sick. But you must bring it to them, mustn't you? They'll beat you if you don't do your chores." Its voice was cold and thick and smug. "Why are you doing this?" The thing smirked. It was ghastly. "Everyone is going to die," it said. "Everyone in your village. They'll drink the water and get sick and die. I hate you all, so I'm poisoning your well." "Why tell me?" "I have to tell someone. I picked you. Of everyone who has come to the well, you are the weakest and the stupidest and the ugliest. So I'm telling you because no one will listen to you or believe what you say." The girl thought. The only other place to get clear water during dry weather was miles and miles away. It hadn't rained for weeks. "I don't believe you," she said, and pushed past the thing. "Stupid," it said. When she got home, she asked her mother if anything could make the well water go bad. "The well is very deep," her mother said, not looking up from her flower. "Too deep to go bad? Go do your chores," her mother said. Then she turned her head and coughed. "I told you," the thing said 3 mornings later. The first morning after seeing it, the girl had taken care to go to the well with other people, and the thing had stayed hidden, though a few times she thought she'd seen evil eyes in the undergrowth. The morning after, she did the same, though the other water carriers were wiping their noses and speaking in thick voices about the sudden ague which seemed to have taken half the village overnight. The third morning, she waited, but no one else was there to get water. She'd stolen milk from the cow's bucket herself. She wasn't supposed to, but her father was barely healthy enough to do his own work, let alone watch her for pilfering. "Why our village?" she asked the thing. "We never did anything to you." "I don't like people," it said. "I told you that. Don't you listen? As for your little village, I'd like to poison towns and cities, but there are too many wells there. Too many people. Always someone watching. Not like here. Here, there's just you, and you're too weak and foolish and afraid to do anything about it." He stuck out his tongue. It was like an earthworm. The little girl squared her shoulders and dipped her yoke stick out of the loops of its buckets. Her father had told her how to treat bullies. She took a firm grip on the pole and swung sideways at the thing. There was a wet sound as its hand slapped into hers, blocking her blow. So clammy and boneless, but its hands were strong, and it wrenched the pole away from her. "Stupid girl," it said. "Look." It pulled up its filthy, frilly shirt and showed her a thin line on its belly. "A man did that, a man with a sword. I killed him. And the one who brought an axe, and the one who rode a horse and carried a spear, I killed them all and buried them, and I've killed every mortal in 50 villages, and you thought you could stop me?" It swung the pole in a flat arc and skipped it off the top of her head, like skipping a stone on water. It was like having a bucket emptied on her, only this was cold, shocking pain. She dropped to her knees. "Yes, cry," it said. "I could kill you. But then I'd have to tell someone else, and who else here is so weak, so foolish? Anyone else might have a tiny chance of stopping me, but you're going to have to watch them all die and be the last one until you die of being stupid and hungry and alone. And if anyone comes, what will you tell them? 'A mean thing soiled the well,'" it said in a cruel, whining mockery of her voice. The thing walked away as she wept and sobbed. When it came back, it was carrying her water. "Take it to your parents," it said. You know they're not too weak. You know you're not too weak to beat you, and they're thirsty." The day after that, she didn't get water, and her parents were too ill to do anything about it. When she went to the well the last time, she didn't have her pole or her buckets or any ideas. She didn't know what to do. Everyone was sick. She knew she could not fight the thing. She knew it would not go away. She could not think of anything else to do, but she decided to go where it was, because that's where it would happen, if anything happened. She went to the well and she sat to wait. The well's stones were cool and mossy against her back. She was thirsty. The cow had stopped giving milk after it got sick, but she did not drink anything. She sat and she waited for a long time. "Still here?" the thing said. One minute it wasn't there. The next it was standing in the forest shadows. The girl didn't reply. "I think one more day should do it," the thing said. "There might just be some strong, determined people left in your village. People of quality. They might come up for water." It smiled a small smile, or as small as any smile could be on its wide and gross face. "Not for themselves, I imagine. They'll come for a sick wife or a sick baby, someone they love, someone who's so thirsty. You might even warn them, but will they listen? No. Not after coming so far. Such a long walk with a fever. They won't go home empty-handed after that." She said nothing. "Cat got your tongue?" She said nothing. It folded its boneless, scrawny arms. After some time, it walked over to the well. "Time for it," it said. She did nothing. It drummed its fingers on the stones. "Are you just going to stare at me?" it demanded. "Is that it?" When she didn't reply, it grabbed her by the hair, pulled her to her feet, and yanked her away from the well. She could feel her hair pulling out, could hear it horribly, and she cried out as it took 4 long steps, dragging her away and flinging her to the dust at the foot of an oak tree. With a grunt, it went back to the well. It turned around as if it was going to sit on the stone edge, and it saw her sitting up. "Don't look at me," it commanded. She said nothing. She sat against the tree, watching. It looked to the left, then the right, then leaned casually against the stones. "I can wait as long as you can," it said. For some time they waited. The pattern of darkness and light, made by sun through leaves, moved and shifted around them. Hours passed. The thing lunged in and slapped her hard, then backhanded, then with the palm. "Stupid!" it hissed. "Ugly little girl, go away! Go run home and cry!" She didn't even get up. She put up her hands, but she didn't stand. "I'll kill you," it said. "I've got lots of time. A dumb little girl like you. You can't imagine how I can make you suffer." She muttered something, and it grabbed her by the hair again, on the lump it had left before, and it pulled her head upright. "What?" it demanded. "And you'll have to tell someone else." It spat in her face, cold spit. Then it went back to the well. Then it began to sing. Its voice was strangely lovely, low and sweet, and it sang of the smell of clean wool. It sang about milk warmed on the stove on a cold winter morning, and the scent of fresh corn in the autumn. It sang of spring nights, and life bursting from the soil, and baby birds asleep in their eggs, and baby bears asleep in their caves, and baby girls asleep in their mother's arms. It was so unexpected, and she knew it must be some trick, but the warm, droning honey sound overcame the wonder of it all, and the girl's head nodded once, twice, and her eyelids drooped until she saw it only blurred by her eyelashes, and then she saw darkness. There was a pause, silent. Then she heard a small sound of satisfaction. "Stupid girl," the thing muttered. It was balanced on the edge of the well when she ran at it, not opening her eyes until her feet were moving, and she shoved it. It cried out as it fell, and she watched. "Ah!" the thing groaned, and she heard it splashing in the water. "I'll kill you!" She draped her arms over the stones and looked down. "You have no idea," it huffed, "no idea how mortals can suffer. I'll take you back to my home, make you a present to my king." But it trailed off. It had braced its feet against one wall and its shoulders against the opposite, and was slowly, but with great determination, climbing out of the well. For a long time it saw her head silhouetted against the sky, but the sun moved as it climbed, and it lost track of her. It had made it back up 3/4 of the way when she returned with a rock. It was as heavy as she could find and carry, and the thing had time for one shout before she dropped it down the shaft. She heard the creature fall again and splash one more time. "All right," it called. "You win. You've beaten me. Your courage and craft. Drop the bucket down and I'll leave. I give my word, I'll never trouble you again." The girl said nothing. "I give my word," the thing repeated. "I'll never trouble you. Never trouble anyone, any village, ever again. You've defeated me. Now let me out." He saw the second rock coming, heard it clatter against the sides as it plunged towards him. There was little room to get out of the way. "Wishes!" it shouted. "Yes, I'll give you 3 wishes. You've gotten the best of me, and I can give you gold, make you beautiful. You can have anything you want. Marry a prince. I can give you wisdom. You can revenge yourself on your enemies. Anything you want." "I only have one enemy," the little girl said. It was a lot of work carrying rocks. Luckily, the soil by the well was stony. When she dropped rocks on it, and it no longer cried out, she figured it was dead. Then she started the long, long walk to the other fresh water. It took her all day to get there and all night to get back. After people got better, they pulled a horrid, decaying thing out of the well, dressed in rotting velvet, and the size of a young man. everyone believed her story.
Yay!
That's the end.
Woo! And thank goodness you had the water. That was a good story.
Thank you.
My favorite part was the singing. I know that probably seems lame to you, but because who would expect a horrible creature to sing? But he was obviously once human or something.
I picture this, I think of this in sort of context of all the old, really dark fairy stories. This is like, Puck's psychopathic cousin. And, clearly he had these sets of restrictions to which he had to conform, that he had to tell someone he was doing what he was doing, but he couldn't be observed while doing it. And so that was really the only thing our poor protagonist had going for her.
Yes. Well, and she was tough. That was good. Defeated by a little girl.
Well, I kind of like stories where the protagonist really, really has to endure. That seems to be, a common thread, and I don't know where this story came from exactly. I woke up one day with the idea in my head and wrote it, and then never had any idea what to do with it. So, and here I am reading it on Halloween. Okay, someone else say something.
Oh, she got muted.
Ha!
I don't understand.
I'm going to pretend you were all overcome with awe and that was a hush of admiration. So,
Someone muted
very
me.
Definitely.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Are you just messing with me now?
No, you were muted. The little mute symbol came up, but
Tim muted me. He just admitted it.
Ain't that just like a man, sister?
There's some sort of weird echoey sound, and he thought it was coming from me while you were reading, so he turned my mic off. But I don't think it was me.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm hearing the phone ringing again, and so that's probably people getting here. I hope you all enjoyed the story.
Very much.
Great.
Yes. Thanks for coming, Greg. Thanks.
Yeah, it was great, Greg. Thank you.
Wonderful.
So,
Thanks. Thank you.
Hopefully I'll be in future ones as well.
Okay,
Have a good
excellent.
evening. Happy Halloween.
You too.
Happy Halloween.
You too.
Iain Lowson?
Hello. Can you hear me at all?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I do hear you.
Good, good. I was having problems with my microphone.
Oh no, you're there. That's you.
Good evening.
This is Eric.
Hello, Eric.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I can't quite make out that poster behind your head.
Oh, it's yeah. Is it backwards?
Oh yeah.
It's reversed. Old World War I recruiting poster. Just a copy.
I'm so confused. Why is it forward for me?
It's backwards for me when I look at my own screen. I don't know why.
Yeah, our stuff is backwards too. In fact,
Yeah, that looks fine. That looks forward though. So maybe it's just backwards when you're looking on your own screen or something mad.
uh-oh. Well, that means if you're going to show that picture, you don't want to show the backwards one. Oh no! I actually turned a picture backwards to counteract that effect.
Maybe it's just a mirror image thing for my benefit.
You could find it on the website. Okay, so we've had one scary story reading. And are the two of you prepared to read something?
Well, I can always read something that I've been working on, or I can tell you a real scary story.
Okay, let's have a
Yeah.
real scary story.
Okay. In the eastern part of Washington State, there's a small, tiny little town called Wilbur. Agricultural town. There's only like maybe a few hundred people who live there. And it's all flat, it's all wheatland. And about 6 miles south of there, there's a cemetery. Currently abandoned. They probably stopped burying people there in the probably around 1920. And it's right next to a road. And as you're driving by, you really don't see much of the headstones because they're all under very, very thick grass. But one thing that does stand out is this large, semicircular, roughly hewn tomb. This weird-looking concrete tomb with a single name on the front saying Mershon. And if you actually stop and take a look, there are 2 marble headstones embedded on the side of the tomb itself, right into the concrete. Now, I did a little research because it's a side project that I do along with being an archaeologist, is recording various abandoned and desecrated cemeteries around the state. So I did a little digging. In that particular tomb, a young man was buried there around 1895. He died in his early 20s from tuberculosis. And his mother was so incredibly distraught that she had that tomb made, had it actually made over the back of her brother's grave that was already there, had this sarcophagus, this really rough hewn brick sarcophagus inside, put a casket in there, probably, from about the date, from what I've heard, it probably had a window, one of those Victorian windows on the lid, so you could open up and look. Supposedly she had it open all the time, and she would go in there. She had a rocking chair. It was an open tomb. She had a rocking chair in there, and she would sit and rock back and forth and read Bible verses to him constantly until some other members of the family kind of intervened and then moved her to the town of Wilbur proper, where she supposedly regained some modicum of her sanity. And a few years after she died, the county, just bricked up the entire entrance. Now, sometime the Historical Society thinks sometime probably in the early 60s, somebody broke in. There's still a little hole where somebody broke in the concrete and then crawled in. Somebody broke in, they broke open, and they took his head. Yes. And then sometime, some photographs that I got my hands on from the local Historic Society, possibly taken maybe in the 70s or maybe early 80s, somebody else crawled in and took a number of pictures of what was left. And it was just a series of desiccated bone matter along with just the disintegrated coffin. And the only thing that you could really discern was human were its boots. The boots were still there. Everything else was gone. So now, as I was recording the cemetery, I crawled in myself. It was just barely big enough for me to slide in. It was one of the most unnerving things that I've ever done. And actually, I was more afraid of what possible tiny animals could be in there and want to attack me. It is rattlesnake country. And then being relatively scared, and I'm not usually scared about these kinds of things because I've done plenty of this kind of work over the last 20 some odd years. I fully expected to see exactly what I saw in the photographs, except I kind of slowly leaned over and looked into the sarcophagus, and there was nothing there. Gone. Everything. I found one fragment of a femur, and that's it. Everything, and no one has a clue where the material went or anything. He may have been removed and reburied. Nobody knows.
Weird.
Yeah, weird.
Did it freak you out?
It did. It freaked me out going in, but as soon as I was in there and realized there was nothing else in there with me, I was okay with it. And I think it was better that there wasn't any other material in there. I mean, it was just mainly because of the close quarters, and then that was really And I'm not claustrophobic normally, but it was very unnerving being in there because there's the only light you have is what you're bringing in with you. And I had like about 4 flashlights pointing in different directions to get some kind of light, and that and the flash of my camera, and that was all I had. And there were animal bones strewn all over the floor. So various animals had crawled in there and died, and they were in various states of decay. So that was pretty unnerving itself too. And usually that doesn't bother me, but I think it was that and the close quarters, and it was scary.
Huh.
Yeah, and people look at me like I'm completely insane when I tell them I crawled in there, and I said, well, it's the only time I'm ever going to do anything like Indiana Jones in my entire career, so I had to do it.
But no ghost popped up. Not
No
the ghost
ghost.
of the guy or
No.
the lady.
Strangely enough, with the work I've done with a number of abandoned and severely desecrated cemeteries, and cemeteries where people have died in various violent means, I have never had a paranormal experience, ever. Some of my colleagues have on some sites, on some literally an Indian burial ground. I can't really give you too much detail on where it is just because of the confidentiality, but there were a number of incidences while working on this one cemetery that no one knew had been there. Like the crows would show up, usually within about 20 to 30 minutes of them finding another body. They would show up. And I was on site for only 2 days, and the next day I went back down to the office and was walking down the street, and a crow followed me for 2 blocks yelling at me. Walking behind me and just yelling at me. I thought, what, does he smell death on me? What is going on here?
Uh-oh.
Yeah. But I've seen some pretty messed up cemeteries, but where you'd think, if anything really, really, really interesting was going to happen, it would have happened. I mean, I'm open to it. I think possibly that some people just have abilities to see that and not. I know people who have and are perfectly rational people who have had experiences, and I don't discount that for a second.
Wow. Let's just check in with Iain and see if he has any scary stories to tell us. Before he gets too sleepy to tell a scary story.
I was just trying to think of I kind of something Greg said. It's that thing of I've never had anything to discount a belief in the paranormal. But the majority of me says no, but I'm not so daft as to say absolutely. I also I have a flying hat story.
Flying hat?
For a time, I lived in a house that my maternal grandparents had lived in, and my grandfather had died in the house. He had a heart attack, and this literally the only paranormal thing that's ever happened to me was I was in my bedroom at the time, and I had a felt hat, very Pratchett-esque felt hat, and I put it down in a chair. And I walked away, and when I got to the door, I realized I'd forgotten something, and I turned back. And as I turned round, the hat went from the chair to the bed in one simple whoosh. And it was just like, oh, okay, that happened. That was the weirdest thing about it, was I just kind of went, yeah. That hat moved, and there was no sort of feeling of dread. There was no feeling of there being another person in the room. There was nothing. It was just the hat had gone from the chair to the bed.
Was there any explanation that you could think of?
Nope. There was no cat underneath it. There was no. My girlfriend wasn't being mean. There was nothing. It was just the hat moved.
Huh. Did you attribute it to your grandfather?
I don't really attribute it to anything. It was something. Yeah, it was something that happened. I have no idea why.
Huh.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say it was something my grandfather would have done. He was more likely to have slapped me upside the head than anything else. But no,
Well, maybe that wasn't
the
an
hat made.
option.
Yeah, maybe he was throwing the hat at me and he missed. But yes, that's definitely paranormal thing. I mean, but there are certain places you go to, and you kind of think, if anything's going to happen, it's going to happen in this place. I've been to tombs and round the islands where you go into these tiny little cramped spaces, and you think, yeah, if something's going to happen, it's going to happen in here because But no, the only place it ever happened to me was a moving hat in the bedroom. So yeah.
Okay. Well, now I guess it's my turn to tell a scary story.
Yeah.
I can find myself on here. My superpower. Theoretically, I should. There I am. I need more light.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Whoa!
This is my dead Victorian person costume.
That's very cool.
Very nice.
Okay, so about 20 years ago, I was dating a guy, and I had to drive quite a way to get to his house, like 30 miles. So he had a house there. He lived by himself. He had a dog. Someone that I knew, the person who introduced me to him, who used to live in that house, had said, there's something weird about that house. I have heard weird noises in there. Like, I'm pretty sure that house is haunted. And I was like, yes, whatever. Old houses make noises. Probably not a haunted house. But when I was there, several times, something weird happened. Once, he was a weird guy, too. And, sometimes he would not agree for me to see him. And I would be like, okay, I haven't seen you in weeks. I'm coming over there to find out what's going on. And then I'd get there and he'd be gone. And I would know that he knew I was coming, so he just left. And I had a key. So this one time, I just went inside and waited for him. And his dog was there, this huge chocolate lab. And so I just sat on the couch with the dog watching TV. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, one of the windows slammed shut. And I didn't think that much about it because it was in Michigan, and the windows there are the kind that lift up and down. So, sometimes they just go nuts and fall down because they're not held up very well. Whatever holds them isn't holding them. It was an oldish house, so I didn't think anything about it right when that happened. But then, right after the window slammed, the dog started barking. There wasn't anything for it to bark about. It didn't bark at the window. It started barking like 2 minutes later. And it was barking and barking. And suddenly, the really strong, pervasive smell of urine filled the room. It just suddenly smelled like urine. And the dog was barking its head off, and the window had just slammed. And I was like, okay, I think it's time for me to go home now. And I left. And that is not the only time something weird happened in that house. Many times there was like a really weird thing. We were in a band together, and the band practiced down in the basement. And one day we were down there practicing, and I was off in the corner and they were playing. I sang. I wasn't singing then. I was just listening to them play. I was in the background, and opposite me was the stairs that went down into the basement. And there was someone who hadn't come yet, and when I saw something on the stairs, I at first thought it was this guy getting there and coming down the stairs. It looked like what I first saw, I thought it was someone's legs wearing like a pair of white sweatpants, which seemed in keeping with the guy that we were still expecting to come because he often wore a pair of white sweatpants. So I looked at the stairs and I saw these two white columns. I couldn't see the feet because things were in my way, and I couldn't see above that because, you know, the ceiling was here and then the stairs came down at an angle. So only like this much of whatever it was could be seen. I thought it was someone's thighs. And then I looked over there again in a minute. Everyone else was playing music. I was the only one facing in that direction. They were all facing in my direction. And the two things had come lower down, and it was two little girls. They were identical to each other, standing on the step. And I was like, what are those two little girls doing there? And then I looked over at the guys in the band. I was like, and when I looked back, they were gone. No explanation. And then I was like, ah! Several incidents of that kind in that house.
Wow.
That beats my hat.
Yeah, beats anything I've ever done. That's so shining.
Mm.
But you don't really want to be there when that stuff is happening. I'm so glad I was not there by myself on that occasion because. But the one that scared me more was when it suddenly smelled like urine in the room. That freaked me out because, I don't know, too much reading of Amityville Horror or something, and I was like, oh no, something really terrible is going to happen now. Get out.
Was there a feeling of hostility at any point during any of these?
In the urine smell with the dog barking, I felt quite scared. I don't know if it was coming from external to me, but I did feel like something didn't want me there. And because I had come over there sort of without the guy's permission that I was dating, just because, I don't know, when you're dating someone and you have a key to his house and he will only see you like once every 2 weeks, and every time you talk on the phone he's like, no, I don't feel like getting together. And I was just like, okay, this cannot go on. But apparently the house disagreed. Yes, it can go on. Go home.
Wow. Yeah, that could be basis for a really interesting story. I mean, you really expand that out. Like you could have, like, he has certain connection to the house himself, and so the house is expressing his reluctance in a much more aggressive manner than he can personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another time when I didn't have the key. Now this doesn't seem suspicious except in the context of everything else. He left me a key in a place where I could get it. And it was really snowy, horrible night. And my roommate drove me over to his house. And we looked everywhere for the key and couldn't find it. And he had left his dog there. I was supposed to come over and take care of his dog. And the dog was inside the house, and he could see us. He was like, come in. We couldn't get in. And then he came back, and he was like, no, the key was exactly where I said it was.
Something didn't want you to come in.
No, that house did not like me. And eventually I didn't end up with that guy, so apparently all for the best.
The house had issues.
You didn't end up with the house, so.
Yeah, thank God. I wouldn't have wanted to be living in that house that didn't like me so very much.
The reason I asked... Sorry, on you go.
No. You asked about the feeling.
Yeah, no, the reason I asked was I was reminded of something else that the only other, I suppose, weird thing. A good few years ago, back in the 90s, I stayed on it with my the girlfriend. She might be my fiancée by then. I can't remember. but we stayed on a Scottish island, the island of Eigg, E-I-G-G, and we stayed in an old farmhouse, an old crofter's cottage that had an extra bit bolted on to give it a decent kitchen. And the reason I asked about the feeling of hostility, the 2 bedrooms for the house were in this old crofter's house. Basically had 2 rooms, one of which would have been the old lounge kitchen, a bathroom, and then a bedroom. And then making a sort of T shape, there was this additional kitchen with a shower built into, shower room built onto it, had been put in so that guests could come to this place and be relatively comfortable. And I just remember my girlfriend and I never said anything to each other. But the first couple of nights we were there for a week, and the first couple of nights, neither of us slept. It was only a couple of days later when we were in the lounge, and it was time to go to bed. We'd run out of things to do to avoid going to bed. And we eventually, I just remember she turned around to me and said, "I can't go into that bit of the house anymore." And I said, I don't want to either. And we discussed it, and we both admitted that we both felt that there was something very definitely about that bit of the house that did not want us there. It was never cold, but it was always unfriendly. There was always a feeling that something was imminently about to come into the room. There was always a feeling that if you turned your head, there would be somebody there. There was always a feeling of disapproval, of just really, you were not welcome. And yet as soon as we stepped out of the older bit of the house into the newer bit of the house, the feeling just went away completely.
Wow.
So we spent 3-4 nights sleeping on the floor
Oh,
in the
no.
lounge of the new bit of, because we literally could not face going into that other bit. Even during the day, there was just, it didn't feel right at all. So I just like I said, I just wondered whether that particular building you were in had that feeling of hostility. But that feeling of imminent something.
It had its moments. There were definitely moments when I was there by myself when I was quite scared. Weird noises, whistling, like coming out of the dryer. Just all sorts of really strange things that there was no explanation for in the world. I mean, unless someone was playing a massive trick on me, it would have required, and it was in the 90s. It's not like all the tech. I mean, I'm sure if someone had wanted to, they could have wired the house in some way. It's not like that's that long ago, but I don't know. I don't think there's a reasonable explanation.
Ian,
like-
I had a house quite similar to that when I was growing up in Greece. There was a certain time of the day, between about 3:30 and 5:30 in the afternoon, the middle of siesta time, when if you were outside the house, you were not getting back in that house, because the closer you came to the door, the stronger just this wall of forbidding and hatred came up, and you just couldn't do it. It wasn't too bad if you were inside, but if you were outside, it just didn't want you coming in. A bunch of different. I was a kid. A bunch of different people said that they saw weird things around the place. A very serious-minded Scots chap, a friend of my father's, saw someone outside the kitchen window, which isn't that surprising until you hear the kitchen window is like 12 feet off the ground. He never agreed to go back in the house again, and we found out. Well, I found out much later that it had in fact been built into a cemetery,
Oh.
You know, they just like pulled the headstones up and built this place. It's a kids' school now. I feel sorry for them.
Oh.
Awesome.
Oh.
As long as it's not a boarding school, that would be fine.
Yeah, at least they can go home at the end of the day.
Huh. I wonder if there are any more stories about it that people have now.
I don't know. I'd need to. I mean, my Greek isn't good enough to do Google searching for it. It's on Corfu, so I'd have to do searches in Greek. I don't know. Who knows?
Have we been joined by Peter?
I can see Peter.
Hey, Peter.
Peter!
Hi.
I'm going to make you big. Hello.
Oh, Echo's back.
Thank you. I was having some technical problems. Hello?
Apparently solved.
Yeah.
Can
Better
you
than
hear
ever.
us?
Yeah, there's some echoing and stuff.
Ghostwoods has gone all Cortana. Oh, hang on. Oh, you're back.
Have you been listening to our scary stories?
I caught some of them.
Do you have a scary story to tell us? This is Peter Tupper, by the way, for anyone watching.
Thank you. Yeah, I wrote The Thing in the Printer. Scary story. No, my life has been remarkably free from encounters with the eldritch and the squamous. I don't know if it's because I go to the wrong parties or what. I live in Vancouver, you see, and Vancouver is a city that's only about 100 years old, so there isn't this sense of the weight of histories pressing in on us that you might get in, Europe or Providence, New England. Though it's won't have that sense of the past coming back to get us.
Well, someone must have lived there before there was Vancouver, though.
That's true. Well, there's weirdness in Vancouver. There's a place that is literally called Blood Alley. It's this little alley in back in one of the poorest neighborhoods in the country, and I believe it's where they used to have all the butchers. So that's where all the blood from the slaughtering went. And nowadays there's a British nightclub that has a balcony that overlooks it. So that's let's see, that's about as eldritch as I can think of, and at least in my experience. I mean, I know there's always
feet washing up, Peter.
I'm sorry?
Hasn't there been something with left feet washing up on the shore of the...
Oh, that, yeah. Yeah, that was very strange. There was somebody's feet, human feet, no other body parts, but somebody's feet were washing up along the coast. And I actually spoke to some guy who worked in the search and rescue along here and said if he knew anything about that, and he did. Yeah, there was a time where only feet for some reason, no other human remains. Yeah, I wish I could spin a narrative around that, but it's all just one of those weird things. Probably I don't know, probably like some kind of large fish or something eating. There was a story that the octopus.
It just ate everyone's bodies, and then their feet were left. It wasn't big enough to eat the whole people.
I don't know, maybe the feet wander, feet float away, the body sinks and the feet float away or something. There was also the story I once heard that we have a relatively famous aquarium in this town. And I heard this story once when I was a kid that one of the octopuses in a tank, it was actually smart enough to get out of the tank sort of wander around the aquarium at night and then get back in the tank. And those things are smart. I got to tell you, they can open jars and things. And so I don't know if that's like verified, but it's certainly that's some memory from my childhood. Yeah. So here we have to me it's almost more like, Lovecraft was always worried about he was worried about he was worried about the past, but he was also worried about the future because he was keeping track of science and things, and color out of space is all depends a lot on sort of readings about astronomy and things like that, and that's so I think that it's not I think that Color Out of Space, for example, I think should be remembered as one of the great science fiction stories of of the era, but it works also as horror. So I think it's important to think about what can be horrifying can also be from other places and other times, and it's not just that sort of gothic sense of the weight of centuries pressing down on you.
Well, that's true. Oh, it's so funny that if you can hear me in the room where you are,
I can.
there's like a little lag of time.
Yeah, I noticed.
So I can hear myself, and then I can hear myself where you hear.
Yeah.
Which is a little scary.
Well, it's like I'm always interested in. I'm interested in when people come up with sort of new monsters. Like, has anyone heard of gang stalking?
No.
Okay, and I actually had an in the field encounter with this when some woman I was walking by on the street gave me the finger, and I asked I had no idea who she was, and I asked her what have I done to you, and she apparently was under the impression that I was one of these stalking gangs, and the idea is that, and this is a relatively new thing. I think it's only cropped up in the last few years. That there are the belief is that there are organized groups of people who are basically stalking individuals and filling their lives with petty annoyances, cutting them off in traffic and sneaking in front of them in the lineup at the supermarket, and banging, yelling outside their door late at night. And the whole idea is that these are government groups who do this to specific people, and to try to not what they're trying to do, they're trying to drive them crazy or something. And
that sounds a lot like clinical training.
Yeah, indeed. But it's but I think it has a sort of very now angle to it, that this whiff of government, government surveillance, all this stuff going on around about the NSA, the Edward Snowden stuff, is that's what a person predisposed to paranoia is going to latch onto.
Yeah.
So now that's what people are fearful about, is the idea that there are massive organizations running around just out of sight, making your life hell.
Did it cross your mind that perhaps
that
that lady was crazy?
Oh, I know she was crazy. I know, but that's the point, is that this is the modern manifestation of paranoia. In the 80s it was Satanists and daycares, and before that it was communists, and before that it was swarthy foreigners, sneaking in and grabbing our women, and stuff like that. So it's this is that particular brand of paranoia updated for the the 2010s.
That made me laugh
There's whole
because
websites about this.
you could easily say that a swarthy foreigner came in and grabbed me.
Oh, that's all right.
Far too kind to say it.
Well, some of my best friends are swarthy foreigners, so.
I'm not so swarthy anymore anyway. I'm more like...
You're not that swarthy, but you're very foreign. Well, I'm very foreign. One of us is foreign.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm just interested in sort of the way sort of the same fears get sort of managed in different ways in different times, and maybe that's why I think that's why Lovecraft has the endurance he has, because he's sort of like goes sort of deeper into like the sort of more, it's a more generalized sense of something ominous out there, and it's not necessarily conforming to any particular. He sort of created his own mythos around that. He's not like working with conventional monsters of vampires and werewolves and things like that, except in a very sort of indirect way. It's more like, he's thinking about it in a different way. He was thinking about it in a different way.
I think Lovecraft's fixation on how small humans are, how we're much less important than we think we are.
Mm-hmm.
Peter, I'm just gonna mute your microphone for a second while I'm talking, so people don't have to listen to me twice. Okay. Yes, Lovecraft. I think that is what we really fear, that we are really helpless and small and in the face of the universe. And he totally picked up on it and personified that vast universe as something which, if it noticed us, would swallow us whole. And that sense of, I'm really nothing, I think, although we do everything we can not to face that, I think deep down everyone feels that. I am nothing. Really, I'm holding on to the earth by my fingernails. On a good day, everything is fine, but if you just look right under that, you see that sense of, hopelessness and helplessness and tininess. And I think that sense of fear is something that is so inextricably woven through all of Lovecraft's work, this very human feeling. And what if it were even bigger than that, the fear that we have? What if there were actually expansive monsters beyond just the fear of being small, but something to compare to our smallness? Okay, that's my whole protracted theory of stuff, and now I will put Peter's mic on again.
I completely agree. Lovecraft's thing is all about the fact that basically we don't matter. And that is always, like you say, that's always the biggest fear humanity have. We have this arrogance that we, all of our religions are this wonderfully arrogant idea that we have been made in somebody's image. This wonderful idea that we are so important to the universe that we are made in the image of that universe's creator. The idea that everything is chaos, that nothing matters, and that we don't matter, is it's a direct answer to that. It's a direct opposite of that, and it is a terrifying thing.
I can't. It won't
To
let me.
really be faced with the fact you don't matter.
Well, that reminds me of something that I think it was from an interview with Kubrick around 2001, where he said space travel isn't scary because it's inherently dangerous. It's scary because the universe is completely indifferent. So they don't care if there's nothing out there to care what we do or do not do. And I always found that really frightening, that very idea. But then again, I also find it reassuring that that there's probably nothing out there actively working against us or working against us anyway. So it's kind of a neutral universe.
Yeah, which is of course what Lovecraft and Ligotti and Laird Barron and people like that very deliberately subvert. It takes the idea of a neutral universe and turns it into this inherently malicious, hostile force that's working against you.
But there's a lot of people who sort of grab, just the names of the monsters and things, and they use it to tell this sort of very heroic story. Like, I've heard people say that Pacific Rim was Lovecraftian, even though I think only in a very narrow sense that that there's something. Lots of people, I think, they use the trappings of Lovecraft without really getting to at that more deeper sense of, existential horror.
Oh yeah, sure. You can take the mythos and tell monster stories with it. That doesn't make your story Lovecraftian. It just makes it, Deep Ones versus New York or whatever. Cosmic horror is very specifically about that nihilistic view of reality rather than about, what you call today's deity of choice.
I love how Tim's voice comes out like this wisdom from the dark.
Yes.
With no picture.
Some cultural depths of Stygian darkness.
Yes.
It was Squamosugos.
Yeah, I could unveil my microphone, my camera probably, but then you have to look at me, so what's the bonus in that?
Well, when the screen goes black when you talk, that just does it. It's just wonderful. It's just this disembodied voice, like, oh, yes it is. Yes, it is Halloween.
From beyond.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess that's kind of that does pose a problem for the writer, because how do you write about something that is sort of that is like cosmically indifferent? Like how can you write the story of an ant getting stepped on by a steamroller? Is there a story there? Is there a narrative, or is there just squish?
Well, it depends. If you can get into the ant's head, there is a story. Because
Okay. Well,
What was the ant doing, and why did the ant think that it was important for him or her to be doing at that moment when this gigantic cosmic thing came out and went squish? So yeah, if you look at front, if you do it that way, I think you could have a story.
Well,
But
most of Lovecraft's victims, if you like, rather than protagonists, were very active in bringing about their own doom. There's this very clear thread where, these bloody idiots were going out and looking for this stuff, and then it squished them.
Yes.
It doesn't normally just kind of squish the woman who sells the flour down the corner shop. It's the antiquarian peering into the past. It's the scientist looking into the future. It's the idiots meddling with stuff that really get it in the neck.
Oh, so it's basically a Faustian thing. There is sort of it's not like bad things happen to people randomly. It's more like if you meddle in things you're not meant to meddle with, you have no one but yourself to blame. unless until the day when Cthulhu rises and everybody gets killed.
Well, yeah, totally. Yeah, bring it on, all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some other idiot gets the planet eaten by Cthulhu. It's not our fault, but still, we're still et.
Yeah. But it has to be that way. It has to be the sense that there's this, this four, like that was how it worked in my story, that there was this, one guy, happened to have this brush with cosmic forces from beyond, and it's luckily, and it's just by sheer luck that he survived, didn't, was permanently ravaged by it. So I guess it's like, that sense that there's something that, it's more like it's writing from the perspective of the ant that the steamroller just misses. And then the other ant, squished completely. And look what happened to Fred.
Yeah, definitely. Again, your protagonist, if he just left Conrad alone and not tried to find him and look out for him and stuff, it wouldn't have happened to him. It's because he put himself into the splash damage. And he was looking to get away merely partially brain burnt. It's a great story, by the way. I mean, all your stories were really good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I mean, like if the protagonist had been there in my story, then Conrad might have completed the thing, and shown it, revealed it in front of hundreds or thousands.
Well, yeah, totally, and that would have been hideous and disastrous, but it wouldn't necessarily have then been your protagonist's story. It would have been someone else who happened to be at the wrong demonstration on the wrong day and got turned into a cabbage or something.
Okay, I'm learning what I don't know how to do with this thing. Now, once I've clicked on one of these...
That's the first
That
step.
is the first step.
Know.
But whenever I click on someone, they stay big, and I can't figure out how to make them... If I don't do it, it'll just go back. But now that I've done it, I don't know how to change it. So now you'll just all have to look at me. No, I'm just trying to figure out how to make it. Stop it! Does anyone have any suggestions?
Well, it's been kind of flipping around quite successfully for me very recently, in fact.
That was me. But before, it was doing it by itself. When someone came in who was quiet and I would put it on him, now I have to put it on everyone because it won't focus on anyone unless I click on them.
It probably needs more blood sacrifices and horrible rituals around long-forgotten stone circles in the depths of the swamps and that sort of thing.
There you go.
No, you just no. That's all window dressing. You just need the math.
There we go.
That was the rest of my costume. All right. Well, actually, we've reached the witching hour now, and it's 12:15.
Why didn't I think of that?
Is that a sonic screwdriver, Ian?
Yes.
Excellent.
Someone's
It's John Baker.
eating corn chips.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful.
So that's Loretta. That's that was a freestanding skeleton that I bought years ago because everyone needs to have one. That was called Stan, the freestanding skeleton. So we called her Loretta instead, and 10 points to anyone who gets the joke.
Yeah, Monty Python.
Well, I didn't get it, but I'm sure it will be explained to me later.
in painful detail.
That was the title character in Life of Brian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
Okay.
right.
Yep.
Okay. Well,
Are
it's
there
been
any?
lovely having you all here. I'm worried about Ian, who might be really tired.
No, I'm surviving. I'm awake again. I've been drinking
Awake again.
fluids.
Well, I'm pleased to have been a part of this project and add one more scale to the Squam's tide of the Lovecraftian canon.
We have a second anthology call up for another Cosmic
cool.
Horror anthology, which has a working title of Cthulhu Lives Dreaming. It's up on the calls for submissions, if you guys...
Oh yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll send you something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we go, we're going to show you this picture, the cover of a book that we're going to be publishing called Those Rosy Hours at Mazandaran. It is kind of a gothic in the style of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein or Dracula, inspired by Gaston Leroux's The Phantom of the Opera. The author saw a story sort of concealed in that book that she felt like she needed to write. She's an incredible writer, and I'm hoping that this book is going to do really well just because I want everyone to read it. I'm madly in love with this book. It's very intense and dark, but somehow I don't really like, gory horror stories. This is quite a bloody story, but it's done in a way, it's not like any sort of slasher story. It's sort of, I can't quite say it's romantic, because it would be weird to call it romantic, and yet it has a kind of gothic romantic feel to it, if that means anything to you.
Yes.
Big and dark. It takes place in 1850s Iran.
Oh, that's an interesting setting.
Yeah, and there's a circus. I love books with circuses that are kind of dark. The circus itself isn't really dark, but the events surrounding the circus are quite dark. It's an amazing book. It came to us just in slush, like just in submission with no query or anything, and we went to Spain in the spring for a week, and I took it with me on my Kindle, and in spite of being there doing stuff with friends and stuff, I still managed to read almost the whole thing. We got home, I had 1% left. We walked in the door, I sat down on the couch, and I was like, Tim, I have to finish reading this book now. And I just sat there and finished reading it because I had to know what happened. And this isn't something that happens to me. I mean, I tend to put books down, a couple chapters in and then go back. Do I really have to finish reading this? It's a really intense, amazing book. And I can't wait for everyone to read it.
Wow.
So it's coming out February 14th. And we're just starting its campaign now. But I wanted to introduce it to people. It's a great book. I think, yeah, people who like horror will like it. People who like historical, dark fiction will like it. It's a little bit of a thriller in a way, if you can call a book that happens in the 1850s a thriller. You can, right?
Yeah.
Sure you can.
Yeah, very, very good book. Great writing. Excellent story. But you have to like dark stuff or it might be too freaky. I mean, it's not... I don't know. I wouldn't read like slasher stories at all because those are too scary. This isn't exactly scary. I don't know how to describe why it isn't scary though. It ought to be scary. It's like a book about serial killers or something who that for some reason I empathized. That's perhaps the scariest part of it. I was able to empathize with the murderers. I actually liked the murderers. You're not supposed to do that, right?
People do it all the time. How many people think Hannibal Lecter is? How many people let Hannibal Lecter slash?
Well, those books I don't like. Those are the bad guys in my mind. But in my mind, the good guys in this book are the murderers. And it's not like person of interest where you're like, oh, those people try not to kill anyone. No, these people are like, ooh, killing people is fun. But they're still the good guys in a way. It's, I don't know. I need to shut up now, but it's an amazing book. So I hope people will take the opportunity to get it. I'm showing you all so you can wave goodnight. It's because it's getting late and Iain looks sleepy even though he claims not to be sleepy. He's invisible. Oops. It's not very responsive. It refuses to pay attention to me. I clicked on your thing. Are you... Why? I know, but every time I click on you, it doesn't show you. It shows your little picture. Are you there? There you are.
I'm here.
Okay. And now here. Thanks for coming, Peter, and telling us about Lovecraft stuff. Thanks, Dark Voice of Wisdom.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Good to talk to you all.
And now we will have some more shows. I might have you on individually to talk more specifically about things. And send stories for the second Cosmic Horror book. We did a good job with that one, I think.
Oh, hats off to you guys. You were amazing. Amazing in assembling that. Thank you so much.
It was fun. I can't wait to do it again.
All right. It'll be wonderful.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Good night, everyone. Happy
Good night,
Halloween.
everybody. Happy Halloween.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Happy Halloween.
Bye.
Good night.